Hello everyone, welcome back to Longswitch Academy. My name is Shubham Prajapati. I will be your host for today. In today's video, we will be talking about how to create your first Lightning Web Component in Salesforce. So stay tuned for step-by-step guide for creating your first LWC in Salesforce. Welcome back everyone in this second segment of our video on creating generate OTP LWC. As we discussed during the first segment of this video that we will be using our own custom icon for the header part. We will also be performing some validations on the phone number, and we will also be handling certain events in the JavaScript for that particular LWC. So stay tuned for all the insights about how you can use static resources. I mean to say how you can use your own custom logos, how you can use the validations within the JavaScript, and how you can depending on certain events on the input, how you can like uh, notify the rest of the component about that change. So stay tuned for all the detailed guide on JavaScript and static resource in LWC. Thank you. And this is how it looks at this moment. In this segment, what we will do, we will add some validation for the phone number, and we will also be changing this logo with some our custom logo. And on this button we will be handling some validations, like for example, if I click on get OTP and if they enter phone number or the phone number field is empty, then there should be a validation like that. So let's begin with the JavaScript part first. Let's add some validations uh, to the to this phone number input. So here, as you see, we have taken the Lightning input type as text, but as we discussed during the first segment, that like uh, this Lightning component library offered so many pre-configured inputs. So we will first see, do we have any input for the numbers, phone numbers specifically or not. So what I'll do, I'll go to the browser. I'll search for the Lightning Web Component library. I'll go into that, and in the quick find, I'll search for input. So what kind of input we are looking for? Telephone input. Or telephone and the mobile phone are two different things. Here the OTP is generally sent to the mobile number. So let's see if it supports the mobile number by default, or how it looks. Let it load. I think based on the example, I can tell it is just validating, or it is just referencing to the like landline phone numbers. But I don't think that will work in our case. So we will drop it, and we will go back to the our code and see if we can apply some pattern here. So first I'll configure is the event. I want to do something whenever user enters some values into that field. So I'll define an event handler and do phone change. I would say phone number. Okay, I'll copy this. We'll go to the JS. First, we will have to define the decorator for storing that phone number that the user will be entering. So I'll keep it as phone number. But first, I have to define whether it is track, it should be API, or it should be a wire. These decorators basically are used to define the scope of your variable or attribute within the LWC. If it is defined with at the red track, it will only be visible within the LWC component in which it is defined. If you define it by like at the rate API, that means that attribute you are exposing to the outside world, which means if a particular component is being used in another parent component, and that parent component, like if you want to pass some of the values from parent to child, then at that time we can utilize those at the rate API decorator defined attributes. So track is for the local purpose within the LWC, and at the rate API is for exposing the attributes to the outside world of LWC. So I'll declare my track attribute as phone number, because, and here the naming convention that your attribute should be in camel case, that is the standard, and you should always try to give a proper name to your attribute so that you can recall why an attribute is defined. So by default I'll keep it as null. Then I will have defined this event, and whenever the event handle change, the user wants will change a value in the input, this event will be called, and I will store that value under the inside the phone number track variable. So that value, whatever value that user will enter, can be referenced by event dot target dot value. And here you can also print this in the console to just see what value we are getting. Let's do this much only for now. So we have set up the handle change event for this phone number. We gave handle phone number change as the name for the event, and here you can see using the event dot target dot value, we are getting the value of the input that is being entered by the user, and we are storing that input value into the phone number track attribute. And just for the record purpose, we are also logging that input number onto the console. So here what, just let's go back to the component and see this in action. Oh, it seems my session got expired. Let me re-log in. It seems my internet is a bit slow today. I hope you guys are like enjoying this demo and getting insights about the Lightning Web Component development. See, let it load. So my component name was, I'll click on this app launcher. It's LSA generate OTP. I'll click on that. I'll try to enter some value and see if we are able to store that value into the track attribute. I'll enter the phone number. I'll enter the console. I'll go to the console and see whatever I have entered, it got printed, which means whatever the input that user is providing, that value is being stored into our track attribute. So right now we are just what I say, we are just storing that value, that input value in the like track attribute. Now let's see if we can apply certain what I say validations to it. So the first validation would be we want to make it required. We will check if this phone number has the value or not. And see, there are so many ways to apply the validations in Lightning Web Component. You can define it as required. You can define the pattern for it. So first of all, we will see if we can apply required validation and some sort of what I say rejects regular expression check for it. So for that, if you want to specify any rejects pattern regular expression, you have to use the pattern attribute. And I had copied one rejects pattern for our purpose for this, so that we can easily uh, save time on this. You can like construct your own regular expression, or maybe you can also what I say you can also use any pre-built third-party vendors that provides or generates regular expression for you. For now, we are just use simple regular expression to verify an Indian phone number. We will also make it required. So I'll go and also see we have provided the regular expression that we want to make this phone number input to match certain pattern. So in case the pattern is not matching, we can also define the error message that will appear in front of user. So for that you can use message when bad input, provide valid phone number. Secondly, message when pattern mismatch. In case the pattern is not matching, then you can show a different message. I'll add invalid Indian mobile number. And in case user needs to provide any value, then also you can showcase a particular error message. So I will add error message like phone number missing. As I always say, in case you want to know more about Lightning Web Components, built-in standard components that Salesforce offers and different attributes that it supports, I always request you to go through the official Lightning component library. Have a look at it, try their simple code, and see if you can get something out of it. So it will really help you out. So we are done here. Let me deploy this code and see what we get. For now, we don't want to make any changes on the JS part. Let's redeploy. Okay, it got deployed. I'll go here. I'll hard refresh it because sometimes the caching problem is there with the Lightning Web Components framework. So in case you don't see your change immediately, I request to do the like hard refresh of your web page. You can like I will also tell you the shortcut. You can use Control Shift R to do the hard refreshing. See, we have added the required attribute, so it will be as required. And see, now I did nothing. I just what I say entered no value into this input phone number, and I just like click outside it. So we got this message phone number missing. Why we are getting this message? Because we have configured the component or the input element to use a particular message when the uh, when the when the user doesn't provide any value. For example, here phone number missing. Now let's see. Let's try to enter some characters. A phone number cannot accept characters. So you see, you'll get invalid mobile phone number. And if I enter this invalid number, see now also it is giving us the invalid Indian phone number, Indian mobile number. Have we entered 10 digits? Let's quickly check. 3, 6, 9, and yes, it is 10. But then also we are getting an error, which means invalid Indian phone number. Why? And here you can see that when the pattern mismatch, the pattern is not matching accurately here. So how to fix it? Let's see. Uh, let's see our rejects is correct or not. Let's try to remove these forward slashes. You see, you have to make sure that your pattern that you are using with the rejects, it is accurate. And now I'll go back. I'll hide refresh my page. Let's let's see. It is loading. Okay. So let me enter a valid number. See, now it took a valid pattern. Let me reduce one number. I'll start getting the error message. So it is accepting 10 digit number, that because that is the valid Indian phone number. We For this demo purpose, I'm just using the simple regex pattern and simple input just to demonstrate how these things work in the Lightning Web Components world. You can use any complex pattern, or you can also use the combination of different patterns across your different input within a form. So that is also possible. So if I enter one character more, you see the pattern will uh, the error will go away because that's a valid input. Now, since we have the input, we have validated it from the user. Now, just try generating one. Let's try generating one like OTP for this number. You know, like just let me give you a brief. You might be wondering how these OTP generation works. Generally, there are third-party systems and the backend systems that help us to generate the unique what I say, unique OTPs based on the phone number, and then they take care of delivering the same on the registered mobile numbers to the user. So that is a different story. But since we are just learning to write code in LWC for this demo purpose, we won't be using any backend service to generate the OTP for us. Instead, we will just replicate that feature in the JavaScript with the help of some math functions that will always give us 6 digit unique OTP number. So let's do that. To save our time, I have like generated one generate OTP method for us to use. So I wrote this method. This method, what it does, it gets the it checks for the OTP length. We want to keep it to 6 digits, and then it generates the maximum minimum 6 digits number. This line, I'll add proper commenting what each line does, so that anyone who takes a look at my code understands what a particular line is doing. And the next line like generates the maximum 6 digits number, and here, just to give you a brief overview, here I'm just using math library and the power function to generate the minimum and maximum 6 digit number. And based to because whatever OTP that we will be generating shouldn't exceed the maximum allowed six digit number, and it shouldn't be less than the minimum 6 digit number. That's why we are doing it. And again, we are just replicating the backend behavior in the front end, but in real world it doesn't work like this. There will be a lot of there will be a well configured backend system which generates the OTP. It keeps it saved for that particular number, then it delivers that OTP to the mobile phone. Once the user enters the generated OTP, it compares against its system. So that's the entire backend structure that is that is there to take care of that functionality. But here we are just replicating it in JavaScript. So never like what I misunderstand that this is how in real world the OTP generation works. So here, what I can do is, now based on this minimum and maximum 6-digit number, we'll use math floor functions and random function to generate the OTP, and we'll store it under validity unique OTP number. And here we will also define one more track variable to keep store the generated OTP number. So I'll label that, or I'll name that attribute as generated OTP. By default, it will be null because we have to showcase this generated OTP number to the user on the front end. So we'll keep this track, and here this dot generated OTP is equal to OTP. Of OTP number. So, see, these track attributes are used to make this component reactive. So as soon as we change value into this track attribute, it will reflect the same on the front end. So assign the is generated with the code track attribute. It is always important to keep proper commenting across your code so that others can also easily understand, and if they have to modify something, they can do it without any hesitation. They know the full context of that code. Now, when we want to generate this OTP, we want to generate this OTP only when the number is there. If this phone number and we want to call this method on click of this button, on click event of this button, generate OTP, and we already have defined this method, and we want to make this button disabled. We want to make this button disabled until there is no input. So there is a disabled attribute for a button. You can also toggle it based on the particular value. That is button disabled. Yes, get is another kind of decorator that you can use to directly read the value of an attribute. I want to make this button disabled when there is no phone number. But I can specify this attribute. So I have to button disabled. It should be this button disabled. You must be noticing that I'm giving all my attributes, all my functions proper names so that they make sense why they have been used. Now let's hard refresh this again. Control Shift R. That's what I follow to avoid any caching issues. Let it load. It is taking time. See, initially our get OTP button is disabled. Now if I enter a valid number, it will get enabled. I'll click on get OTP. I clicked on it, nothing happened. You must be wondering there must be something wrong, but we haven't used any space to display the generated OTP to the user. So therefore, we have to configure another layout item. I'll name it as show generated OTP start. So generated OTP end. Here for displaying that, I'll just use a simple message for now. We can stylize that later. Generated OTP. And I'll use the generated OTP. Let's see how it looks now. Let's refresh our page. I'll enter a phone number. I'll get the OTP. You see, this 6-digit number I already got. Now there are two things that I think I missed to mention. This generate OTP message should only appear when we have the OTP. So we need to make it conditional rendering. We need to use the concept of conditional rendering. So I want to show this only when there is an OTP. So I'll use the template tag for the conditional rendering. Template, and it should only be shown when we have the value into this generated OTP. And you also notice that it is appearing a bit like it is sticking with that button. So we have to use that um, padding top bottom class. So here we can use class I already copied, and here I will also use this particular class. So just make it a bit bigger and bolder. See, once the changes have been deployed, let's hard refresh it. I don't know why it is taking time today, but usually it is fast. Valid phone number, valid number, get OTP. You see now when on this message will only appear when we have the OTP. So this is how this like generate at the backend or the coding functional part of this generate OTP LWC would work. This will just accept the phone number from the user, run some validations. Once the validations have been passed, it will try to generate a unique 6-digit OTP and display it on the user interface so that user can see it. Okay, as you can see, our Lightning Web component is working fine now, but there is one glitch that I wanted to highlight. Here, as soon as I enter a number, whether it is valid or invalid, the user is able to click on this get OTP button, because as soon as we receive any value into this get phone number input, the button gets activated and user can receive the OTP. But this behavior is not according to the requirements. The user should be able to get the OTP only when they enter a valid Indian mobile number. So we have to fix this. In order to fix this, there is a concept of lightning input report validity, where you can validate whether the input is where you can perform the validation on your lightning input fields in the JavaScript. So let's see how we can do that. So I'll go back to the code, and I'll create one method called, it is always good to have a unique or separate method for handling the validation. So the validation begins by getting the reference of the input fields. So I'll use this dot template dot query selector. I'll use lightning input. Since we register one, we can use this method. This will give us all the lightning input fields available on our form. So what I'll do, we will first check the input fields are there. If yes, then what I'll do, report validity. There is a built-in method that will, this is the built-in method that Lightning Web Component framework provides, using which all the validations on that particular input field are run. If the input value inside that input element is valid, then this method will return true, otherwise it will return false. So first we will also see what we get in the console. See, I'm trying to demonstrate all the possible things with the that are basic with the Lightning Web Component development. Therefore, I'm like showcasing with this. And we'll also have a boolean is valid flag. By default, it will be true, and boolean is not the type, so it will be let. Because in JavaScript there are no specific types, it will return the value of this value. So we'll deploy it. So if we deploy it, we'll see at each step what we get into the fields of in the value of this is valid flag. We'll also add the line number 15. It is always good to have a line number in your console log so that you know from which line you're getting your particular debug log. But this method won't run automatically. Validate phone number or validate input, I would say. So This function we are not calling anywhere. So how would we know whether the input is valid or not, and how would we get the that well defined value of the is valid flag? So in order to check, first of all we should ask at which point we need to check the input. We need to check the input before we enable the button. If the input is valid, then and then the button should be enabled. Right now we are just checking whether there is a value in the phone number or not. Then only we are enabling the then we are just directly enabling the button. But here we just need to make sure that if the phone number is input valid, whatever the phone number, that mobile number that user is entering, if that is valid, then only we should be enabling that button. So before I configure the button to work according to the validity of the input, one more thing that I need to change here. Sometimes this lightning input selector directly won't work. So we can define a class. It can be just a placeholder name. I'll share it as I'll name the class as custom input, so that we will only pick up all the input with this particular class only. And here in the query selector, as you know, if you know the basic CSS query selector, if you want to select any element by class, you have to use dot then the CSS class name. And if the output of this validate input, because here as you can see we are returning the is valid value of is valid flag. Here initially it will be true, but this input since right now we just have what I say, one input field, or maybe let's keep it like this only. Like here this report validity field generally returns the boolean value. So whatever result we have, we will store into this is valid flag. And if this is valid flag is true, that means the input, that whatever input that the user has given is valid. So the button should be disabled when this dot validate input returns false. Okay, let's see how it works. We'll go back to the class, refresh the component. I don't know why this error is coming up. Let's see. Let's refresh and see. It's taking time to load. Yes, it is here. We'll enter something. Now there is one more glitch. This get input is by default activated. But let's see what do we get into this invalid flag. One important thing is in this line number 36, we are getting null. Here we are getting null. This should not happen. We have specified the class custom input. Then we tried querying it. Maybe we can also do this. We can try to do this query selector. Sometimes it doesn't autocomplete the query selector all. First of all, we should get a value into this input fields parameter. Then only we can expect it to run further. And there was one glitch as I had explained that this water automatically gets what I say activated. So that is because like we are not getting a value here. If we get a value into this, the rest of the validations will be performed. Let's see this time it works or not. See, e-report is not a function because here we are not getting anything. That's the problem. Why? Let's try to explore this template. I think it doesn't work here because template is the Lightning Web component frameworks attribute. So let's try to use document dot query selector all by this class dot custom input. Here at least we should get something. Here it is empty, but you see this is getting errored out because here we are not getting any value. To prevent this, what we can do, this input method should only be run when there is a phone number, and otherwise disable should be true. If the phone number is there, the validation should be checked, and otherwise by default the button will be disabled in case the phone number is not there. We'll check. See, I just used a ternary operator. So these are the good code practices to avoid unnecessary conditional if else statements. You can use a ternary operator. See, first error is gone. Now try to document dot query selector all by class dot custom input should at least return something, but here it is not returning. Let's try to inspect this. See, the class is there, but it is not returning it. Then we try to query just the input by tag. Is it possible? See, here it returned. But see, it should also written by this class name, but it is not. So let's refer to the official documentation. I have opened Lightning input component and its official documentation where I'll check for this report validated. Here you see this is how they have done the similar pattern. The template query selected dot input component, and if you go check it there, what I say input, they have given the input component. It's the class name. Here this is what they have used. Now see if this works or not. Let's try to go back to the code. Let's cross verify. Here let's try to change query selector and hit enter. But I don't know why it is not working somehow. I given the class some input. I'm doing it all right as per the documentation, but somehow see you meet with this kind of situations where you think that everything is configured correctly, but it doesn't work. So let's try to troubleshoot this. This will also become a good exercise for you to how to troubleshoot if you encounter any issues. If it load, I don't know why it is taking time. As we load it, I'll enter a number. Now this time you see I found the component. There was nothing wrong with it. Sometimes I believe the caching takes time and it takes a bit of extra seconds to load your changes, because you see this is what we had tried before as well. If you come here and check the same thing we had tried before. So don't panic if something is not right. Go back, check your code, see if you have made everything correct. In case then also you are not getting the answer, the official Salesforce documentation is your go-to place. You can easily visit them, that documentation, and try to find and try to cross-check your configurations. Like I visited and checked the configuration for the report validity feature, and that's how I figured out that I'm doing it all right. But sometimes like it takes time to check the changes. Now even though I'm entering the value, but since it is invalid, the button is not getting activated. Let's try to add something. Then also it is not accepting. Now I have added the correct pattern. The is valid also true. The button got activated. If I incorrect the pattern, if I enter any wrong value, the validation will hit, the button gets disabled. So this is the correct functioning of this component. It will only request for the OTP when a valid number is added, when a valid mobile number is provided that satisfied the Indian mobile number pattern. Now we will see the use of static resource in Lightning Web Component. And before we deep dive into the coding session, we'll just what I say. We'll just go through the basic overview of static resource in LWC. So you can consider the static resource as a like storage unit that Salesforce provides, in which you can like upload your external JavaScript libraries, or maybe external style sheets, or the images that you might require to use in your Lightning Web Components. Why why do we need the uses of the uses of the static resource? The main reason here is sometimes when you develop a Lightning Web Component for what I say for the real world applications, you are asked to use the personalized graphics. You are asked to use some third party libraries. For instance, you might have to use some fancy notification systems. You might have to use particular company's branding in your LWC. In that case, you are required to use some images. You are required to use some style sheets. So using the static resource, you can upload those external files in on the Salesforce platform, and later on you can what I say reference to those uploaded libraries in your Lightning Web Component. Now let's begin the uses of static resources in Lightning Web Components. So we will begin it by uploading the like graphics that we will be using in our LWC to static resource. Here we want to use our own custom logo or icon instead of this message icon or email icon. So in order to do that, what I'll do, I'll go to the setup, because before we start using the static resource, we have to first upload the images or any of the content that we need to use in our LWC to the static resource. So for that, I'll go to the setup. In the quick find, I will search for the static resource. You can see this option is there. You have to click on it, and all your static resource will appear on this page. Since this is the brand new org and we have no static resources available, therefore you are seeing none here. In case you want to create a new static resource, you have to click on this new icon, give it a name. I'll enter the name as generate underscore OTP underscore icon. You should be always be giving a proper name to your static resources so that it makes a sense and other users of your org can identify the purpose. And one more thing, the name of a static resource doesn't support any spaces or any other special character. In case you so you should prevent using them, and in case either you can have the name in this underscore format or you can have something like this, whatever is suitable to you, but I prefer the earlier version. I will also add a description for my static resource so that it makes it clear for others that why a particular static resource was created. So I'll add a description. This static resource will be used in this. I'll add my component name. So like that, for whatever purpose you are uploading a static resource on in your Salesforce org, you have to specify it in the description so that you can also remember. It is for your benefit as well, because after some time you might forget why you have created a particular static resource. And I will also add a one. Do not delete. Then from this file chooser or file picker, I'll choose my file. you can you have to just navigate through your folder where you have your resources. For now I have kept my resources under pictures LWC demo, and I'll choose my, it can be anywhere on your machine. You just have to locate that location and select your appropriate files and hit OK and click save. So once your static resource is uploaded successfully, you will see something like this, and the size will also be there. If you click on this view file link, you will be taken to your file, and as you can see I have uploaded this file with with a png file, and I'm seeing it here. So this is how you can create the static resource in LWC. Now since we already uploaded our image or our icon to the static resource, now let's see how we can import that into our LWC and have this particular email icon replaced with the static resource. So in order to give you the exact step, I'm not what I say, I'm not memorizing the code. Instead I'll give you the steps that you can also follow on your own to just learn the this aspect of Lightning Web Component coding. So what I'll do, I'll search for static resource in LWC official site. Salesforce has its very well documented what I say uh, documentation on these things. So you should always refer to their documentation when you are trying to learn something new or something on your own. So I have searched for that and I'm trying to load their official website. See, there is a purpose of showing these links or these official documentation in this video. uh, I just wanted to give you an insight that for everything that you do in Salesforce, there is a supported documentation available. You can always refer to that for clearing your doubts and getting answers to your questions. And this will also help you to make independent while you learn to code in Salesforce. So for importing, since we already have the static resource, we just need a way to import it. So there is a way. There are basically two ways of importing Lightning Web static resource in LWC. One with a namespace, in case you are maintaining a namespace in your organization, then you have to follow this approach where along with your static resource name, you have to specify the prefix of your namespace prefix. And in case you are not having any namespace, you just have to simple import method. Since for now, for this demo, we are using a developer org, therefore we don't have any specific namespace. So I'll copy the first variant, go to my code. I mean to say, I'll go to my what I say LWC, and I'll also add a comment. I'll just explain you this different like portions of this import statement. It is always a good practice to maintain proper commenting inside your what I say inside your LWC files, so that makes it clear for you and the fellow developers that will be working with you. So this @Salesforce is the default that will come with all your imports related to static resource. This resource URL portion of this import statement is also mandatory. You have to keep it as is. The important thing is this resource reference. This resource reference is nothing but the name of your like static resource. So you have to, in this entire URL, you have to replace this with your actual static resource name. So I'll go back to my org and trying to see what is the name of my uh, static resource. This is my name, and as you can see, as I mentioned, my namespace prefix is empty, therefore I don't need to specify it. So this is my like static resource name. Now what I'll do, I'll also change this my resource to something meaningful. So what I'll give it, you can also use a capital all capital letter kind of word variant for the naming conventions, because this is the one time import, and this is a like different external entity that you're importing in your LWC. So this will make it more easy to identify. So I'll name it as generate OTP, maybe icon. And since we have imported it, we also have to bind it with one of our track attributes or normal attribute to, so that we can make it available for use in the HTML. Generate OTP URL. You cannot just copy this and use in your HTML, that is not supported. So you have to use something like this, and you also should be using proper naming conventions for your attributes that will be holding this value, as I'm using here generate OTP URL. So wherever I will use this attribute in my HTML, I will come to know, or anyone who will be reviewing my code come to know that what is the purpose of this particular variable. So I'll copy it. I'll go back to the HTML. Right now I'm using icon, but since this is an image that we have uploaded, it cannot be used in conjunction with icon, so I have to comment it. I will instead of icon, I'll have to use image tag. As you know, in image tag there is one important attribute that we have to set when SRC. So I'll configure this generate OTP URL in the SRC, because the SRC attribute of image tag accepts an URL of the image where your URL is where your image is stored. And I also have to highlight or specify the height. I'll use in 96. I will also specify width, that is 96. These 96 are in pixels. And I will also set some alt, that is alternative text. In case somehow the image doesn't get rendered properly, we need to showcase something to the user. So I'll specify generate OTP height, so that when in case due to some issues image is not rendered, the end user will come to know that this place will be occupied or replaced by the generate OTP icon. Once we are done with the changes, we will deploy it. We'll go back to our component. We'll refresh it. It is loading. Feeling very excited how it will look on the UI. See, when you will also do these things on your own, you'll be equally excited to learn something new. Come on, I'm waiting. Last, it is taking a lot of time. I wish I could do some magic and just quickly reload it, but eventually it will take some time. Bingo. We have our, you can see, we have our own, what I say, static resource or image loaded from the static resource. And this is how you can upload the static resources imported in LWC and can take your LWC component to the next level. I hope you are finding it useful. So our like logo is now coming from the static resource. Now just quickly add some more like style enhancements to the Lightning Web Component so that it resembles with the simple UI that we have been referring. So what are the changes that are pending? First thing first, here this asterisk is appearing, but whereas if we see in this like sample UI, there is no asterisk, so we will have to remove it. In order to remove this asterisk, we have to change the variant on the input. So we will use the variant attribute and we will use the label hidden. Basically, label hidden. Basically, that asterisk is nothing but the label of the input element. And since we are already running the validation, there is no need to specific asterisk sign. So we will be using this label hidden variant. We have made the changes. We will now like deploy the latest changes and see how it looks. Changes have been deployed. Let's refresh it. You might be wondering that we have removed the asterisk, whether the now whether the input will be considered as a required or not. But trust me, it will work as it was working before. So it is just the uh, like UI or the style fine tuning that we are doing. Let's see. We just have to look at it like it is taking time to load. I don't know why it is taking time, but uh, you have to really keep calm and composed in such situations. You see, the stick is gone, but uh, the validation is still working. So it was just the styling change that we did. Now the next change that we would like to have here is this get OTP button is stretched to match the 100% of the width. So how can we do that? So for that, I'll be taking at so for sorry for so for that So for that, I will be taking a look at this Lightning design system documentation, and where I will be checking the buttons blueprint. There will be one attribute for stretching the buttons, so that we will be looking at. So I'm on this documentation. Here there is a sizing attribute, and then there is an option to SLDS button stretch. I'll copy it. I'll go to my component. I'll go to my button. I'll add a class. I'll add this class. I'll try to deploy my changes. Okay, my changes have been deployed. Let's go back to our component. I'll reload it. Okay, you can see that still there is no change in the button. Why? Let's find out. So this is my layout item. This is my button here. The style sheet has been applied. You can see that the class is also there, but it is not making any effect onto the on the button. Why is that? Because this lightning button is not the actual button. Instead, it is just the wrapper around the standard like HTML button, as you can see here. So in case we want to stretch the button, we have to apply the styling on the inner child button element. Then only it will get stretched. I will show you a demo. In the class property of the inner child button, I'll add this class and I'll hit enter. I'll hit enter, and you can see that the what I say, the button got stretched to the 100% width. Now you will ask how we can like get rid of this problem. How we can directly access the button element from the lightning what I say lightning button tag. To be very honest with you, there is no straightforward way to achieve this. There might be some workarounds that you can go for to have this thing in place. In case you go for any of the workaround, there are high chances that your button might not work as expected across different browsers or different devices. So the most cleanest and suggested way is to use the normal HTML button instead of lightning button when you have want to stretch it to match the width of your container. So what I'll do, I'll copy this element, I'll go back, I'll comment this section, I'll put my button, comment the code, I will configure the on-click OTP, on-click event. I will also configure this disabled attribute. Once we have this in place, you will see that the normal HTML button element is also working like a charm with this LWC. Let's deploy it. Let's reload it. It's taking time. Loading, loading, loading. Okay. Finally, it seems it is here. Okay, here you go. The button is now stretched. If you reduce the screen size, if you reduce the screen size according to different device, you will see that the button is already taking the 100% width of the container. For example, from iPad I will change to iPad mini, then also it is getting switched, or it is getting switched to or aligned with that layout. But on all the devices, for example, if I use this Pixel 7 device, then also you can see that it is taking the 100% width of its container. So it is perfectly aligned with the what I say, with the device. Now one more thing, like this is particular like about uh, stretching the button in what I say, Lightning web component. I hope you find some insights about this approach as well, that there are certain roadblocks that you hit while you develop for the Lightning Web Components. So in that case, obviously we have to go with the workarounds. But I strongly suggest that whatever workaround you choose wisely. You do your thorough due diligence. You do your thorough research on that. Then only implement it, so that nothing gets broken during that implementation. So with this, like, this is how you can like stretch a button in Lightning Web Component. Now let's look at the way how we can change the color of a button. Because here, as you can see, instead of this blue color, I want to use my own brand color. So how to do that? Let's find out. For that, inside my components folder, I will create another file, LSA, with the same name as my component, generate OTP.css. In that, I will write a CSS for custom button. I'll add the background color. My brand color is like this, and I will also want to use the same border. Now, as you can see, we also have, let me remove this way. We also have the disabled variant for our button. So here in the CSS also, I would like to configure the CSS for the disabled variant. This is how I can configure the CSS for the disabled variant. And what kind of color I want to have? I just want to use the same as what I say Salesforce uses. Here in this case, let me investigate here, and disabled. Do we have anything for disabled here? Search. Sorry, my screen lagged a bit. So for disabled, this is the color that they are using. I'll click on this, and I'll be taken here. I'll copy this code. I'll copy it here, because if we want to specify the sorry, if we want to specify the like different color for the disabled attribute, then it will automatically take my brand color in both the variants, disabled and non-disabled. Therefore, it is important. Here, instead of background, choose background color. Now, since I have created my custom CSS here, I would have to apply this custom CSS to my button. I'll go to the button. Where do I see the class? I'll add custom button. You might be wondering, like, why I didn't pick this class and start modifying all the attributes within this. First of all, you can do this, but it is not advisable because these SLDS classes are the standard Lightning design system classes provided by Salesforce, and it is being used across all the standard buttons that Salesforce uses with within its UI. So if you go and modify any CSS within that class, it will impact on throughout your platform, throughout the Salesforce developer org, and I believe no developer wants that kind of side effect. So it is always advisable to use your own custom CSS whenever needed. So I copied it and I have specified on the button. I'll go and deploy. Let it deploy. Then I'll go here. I'll refresh the page. I think I was in the mobile explorer, therefore it was changed to classic. Let's refresh it again. Just loading. So let me find out. Let's see how it is looking now. I'll go and find my component and let's say generate OTP. In disable it is fine. Bingo. We got our new styling applied to our button and it is looking really good and nice, and it is aligned with our branding. Now you on the side note, like you might be wondering that while I'm looking at this component on a desktop, it is like looking like a big stretched component. How will it look in on mobile devices? First of all, every component has its use case. This one particular component that we are developing as part of this demo will be used across the mobile devices. So we are more interested in how it will look on the mobile and the tablet devices rather than the desktops. So I'll show you how you can check whether how to look, how can you check like how your component will or how your LWC will look on the mobile or tab devices. All you have to do is hit F12 on your keyboard. Then you will be presented with this window, and here on all the modern browsers you will have this toggle device toolbar option. Click on that, and from here you can choose the different devices on which you would like to see your component. For example, I want to see my this LWC on iPhone SE, so I can check it like this, and I will get a feel that this is how it will render on that device. Let's say I want to check it on iPad Air, so I'll get a feel like this is how it will look like, and you can see everything is aligned properly, and like the button is also like aligned with the device size. And I can also check on iPad Pro that how will it look on the iPad Pro. Maybe Pixel 7 I can check on Pixel 7, it is how it will look. So you will get the sense that across different devices and screen resolutions how your component will look, and in case you see any issues you can amend your design, you can amend your LWC to support a specific device size. So yes, this is pretty much it for from this enhancement segment for the styling. And on the what I say side note, or just to compare our initial design or the reference design, this verification OTP verification or OTP generation screen with our output, you will get the sense that it is resembling each other. They are looking sort of identical with some branding changes, but you are getting the sense that you can design anything with the LWC. You can stylize it the way you want it. You can use your own graphics within your LWC, and you can just take your LWC development to the next level. And you can also have it, what I say, mobile friendly, and you can have it responsive.